Ahmed Ismail Hassan Yassin. Ahmed Yassin's Palestinian passport lists his date of birth as 1st January 1929. He was born in Ashkelon. He was a refugee in Gaza after 1948 and worked as a teacher, preacher, and community worker. At the age of 12, Yassin was paralyzed after a sports accident and had to use a wheelchair for the rest of his life. He was married and raised 11 children in a 3-room apartment in a Gaza area. He joined the Muslim Brotherhood while studying at Al-Azhar University in Cairo and adopted the movement's belief that Islamic rule should apply everywhere. After returning to Gaza, Yassin actively participated in politics. He founded the Gaza Islamic Center in 1973, which soon controlled all religious organizations. In 1979, he founded the Islamic Foundations, an organizations that the Israeli military government hoped would reduce the political influence of Yasser Arafat's Fatah movement. At that time, the Islamic Foundations was mainly involved in social assistance, but the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood filled Yassin's belief that the Israelis had occupied Muslim land whose ownership was non-negotiable, and the Sheikh gradually turned away from social activism and religion to clandestine activities against Israel rule in the West Bank and Gaza. Yassin was arrested in 1984 and sentenced to 13 years in prison for illegally possessing weapons, establishing a military organization, and calling for the destruction of Israel. This organization used money from Islamic rebels in Jordan to buy large quantities of weapons. Yassin was detained until May 1985, when he was released under a prisoner exchange agreement between Israel and Ahmed Yassin during the first Intifada of 1987. Yassin transformed his Islamic organization into a new body called Hamas, an acronym for the Islamic resistance movement. Hamas means zeal in Arabic. In Hebrew, it means devil. The organization has received widespread support within the territory, in part through its uncompromising stance toward Israel, expressed in conspiracy theories in its tweets from the verticals of the elders of Zine, and its commitment to advance waged war against the Jews and raised the banner of Allah in every square inches of Palestine. It also filled the void left by Arafat's inability to provide basic services to Palestinians in Gaza by establishing a social welfare system that includes schools, clinics, and hospitals that provide free services to Palestinian families. Hamas also established charitable foundations in the territories, in Israel and around the world to fund both its social and anti-social activities. In 1989, Yassin ordered Hamas to kidnap Israeli soldiers in Israel, kill them and bury their bodies in a way that would allow Hamas to negotiate a body exchange for Hamas prisoners who would be released from prison in Israel. Yassin was arrested following the kidnapping and the murder of IDF soldier Ellen Sadon and the discovery of the body of IDF soldier Evi Saspars, who was also kidnapped and murdered, that he ordered the creation of a military element within Hamas. He was tried in Israel and sentenced to 2 life sentences for his involvement in the attacks. Yassin was detained from May 1989 until October 1997, when he was released in exchange for 2 Massoud against following a failed 1997 Massoud assassination of al-Hamas. On September 6, 2003, the Israeli Air Force dropped a bomb on a building in Gaza where Hamas leaders gathered, but Yassin escaped with a minor hand wound. On March 22, 2004, he was not so lucky. He was killed in Israeli helicopter attack on his car as he left a mosque in the northern Gaza Strip. In October 20, 2003, a sudden increase in violence engulfed the Israeli-Palestine region. Hamas launched a surprise attack called Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, causing Israel to react strongly. The fighting lasted for weeks, with a ceasefire emerging in early November 20, 2003, but the atmosphere remained tense. To dig deeper into why Hamas and Israel are in conflict, one must understand the historical, political, and religious aspects of origin and hidden meaning of Al-Aqsa Flood. Regardless of strategy of Hamas or any Palestinian movement for that matter, the blood military operation deep inside Israel that began on Saturday was only possible because the Palestinians simply bored. 16 years ago, Israel imposed a close siege on Gaza Strip. The history of that siege is often presented through two very different explanations. To some, it was an inhuman act of collective punishment. For others, it is unnecessarily evil, so that Israel can protect itself from so-called Palestinian. However, what is missing from the story is that 16 years is enough time for an entire generation to grow up under siege, join the resistance, and fight for their freedom. According to Save the Children, nearly half of the 2.3 million Palestinians living in Gaza today are children. This fact is often used to describe the suffering of people who never leave the teeny 365 square meter strip of poverty kilometer. But numbers, even when they seem accurate, are often used to tell only a small part of a complex story. This generation of Gaza, who grew up or was born after the siege, has lived through at least 5 major in which children like them, along with their father, mother, and older siblings, their younger siblings, are the main targets and victims. The hundreds of fighters who entered Israel through various entry points at dawn on Saturday were the same young Palestinians who know only war, siege, and the need to protect each other. They also learned how to survive despite the lack of everything in Gaza, including clean water and proper medical care. This is where the history of the generation intersects with the history of Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, or any other Palestinian group. Yes, Hamas chose the timing and nature of its military operation based on a very specific strategy. However, this strategy would not be possible if Israel did not leave these young Palestinians with no choice but to fight back. Videos circulating on social media show Palestinian militants shouting in Arabic with distinctive and often harsh Gazan accent. "This is for my brother, this is for my son." Videos circulating on social media show Palestinian militants shouting in Arabic with a distinctive and often harsh Gaza accent. "This is for my brother, this is for the son I." They shouted these statements and many others while shouting, in many cases, abounded their positions unfold. The October 20, 2003 surprises attack is directly related to the 1973 attack by choosing the 5th anniversary of what the Arabs consider a great victory over Israel. The Arab resistance Palestine wants to send a clear message. The Palestinian cause remains the cause of all Arabs. This pan-Arabic discourses is no coincidence and is contained Al-Qasim Commander Mohammed Daif, founding commander of the group Saleh Al-Rouri, head of Hamas political Ismail Haniyeh and Abu Ubaida's famous Must spokesman, they all called for unity. They all called for unity and emphasized that Palestine is part of a border struggle by Arabs and Muslims for justice, dignity, and collective honor. Hamas' strategy would not have been possible if Israel had not left these young Palestinians with no choice but to fight back. Indeed, for Gazian groups, psychological warfare is as important as physical combat. Hundreds of videos and images were distributed on all social networks, as if in the hope of relationship between the Palestinians, the usual victims, and Israel. No matter how many Palestinians Israel kills in revenge, no matter how tragic, it will not be able to salvage its tattered image of an undisciplined army, a divided society, and a political leadership. The ruler only focused on his own survival. It's too early to draw general conclusions about the outcome of this, but what is clear is that the fundamental relationship, the Israeli occupation and the occupied Palestinians, may change, and in what ways the way is permanent because of what happened in October 7th, 2023.